Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Just get on the phone. You're on, if it works.
Okay, Rob Browne here on Sidelines on this Monday, going into week 6 of the college football season. What a wild weekend it was. There's a lot happening. A lot happened over the past weekend. We're going to be joined in just a moment by David Schultz, and when David's on, always a lot to talk about. I call him the Sultan of the Sun Belt. We're going to be with you for the next 2 hours talking college football from over the weekend. Segment number 2, Jason Caldwell, inside the Auburn Tigers, will join us. A lot to talk about from that Auburn LSU game. And then in the top of hour number 2, Tommy Kane checks in from Atlanta, talking some ACC college football. Takeaways from the Clemson 30, NC State 20 in Death Valley. Both teams are good teams. And I think they'll both win a lot of games this year. Clemson got the win. And in segment number 4, Yancy Porter checks in from Oxford. Ole Miss with a close win, but they got the win over Kentucky. Do this. Give us a follow on Twitter at @sidelines_live. And we will be glad to follow you back. So that is, again, at @sidelines_live. David Schultz down in Mobile. Man, you're catching it from all angles. Auburn loses to LSU. I can't remember a team looking for more ways to give a game away, but they did it. Alabama gets the win on the road, 49-26 at Arkansas. Ole Miss, they got that close win. Mississippi State lays the wood to Texas A&M. Them and Auburn, very similar. When they play, by law, somebody will have to win that game. But let's get your takeaway from this past weekend's games.
Well, first of all, does the mic sound okay? I'm trying the podcast mic. Does that sound all right? You got me, Rob? Do I sound okay?
Okay, I don't know.
You got me? Hello?
Check all those things.
I'm here. Can you hear me, Rob?
I went through my headset. See if you can hear me.
Am I good?
Yeah.
All right. Oh, new headset. How are we doing, Rob? Can you hear me?
I'm doing good, dude. Sorry about that. Yeah.
All right. Got it. Okay.
Keep going.
So if I said to you, Rob, that was a crazy game, you don't know what game I'm talking about. I could be talking about Auburn LSU. I could be talking about the Saints game. I could be talking about Georgia, Missouri, or I could be talking about South Alabama and the Cajuns. That was a wacky football weekend. Good luck if you're betting on it. As far as Auburn and LSU goes, I mean, what are we working on? 3.5 offensive coordinators, right? He's had 3 offensive coordinators, and he's getting help from an outside coordinator from Arizona State, and they still can't figure out you don't go for it on 4th and 10. You only go for it on 4th and 10 when you have to go for it on 4th and 10. Like, you're not going to get the ball back.
Yeah.
What are the analytics on making 4th and 10 if you have Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers? Meanwhile, Robbie Ashford. 4th and 10?
Not very good.
No,
yeah.
Not great.
No.
So,
I'm with you. I think the play calling at Auburn is the biggest problem. Offensive play calling. The defense is playing hard.
Defense is playing hard, and the offense is moving up and down the field. But, second down, you remember when you played Tecmo Bowl, right? We would stop at the 11 or 12-yard line, get tackled there so we could get a first down. Like, 1st and goal from the 10 is really hard, right? So isn't 2nd and goal for your starting quarterback from the 10-yard line going to be really hard? So now we're going to put it in the hands of the wide receiver, and we're not doing a throw back to where everyone's following us and we're going to throw it back to the other side. We're on half the field and he's being chased, and, poor Coy Moore, panicked, which, okay, that's going to happen when you put it in his hands on the 10-yard line. I guess I'm still surprised that Brian Harsin is still the head coach, right? This is coming. And we are, so last week, right, A.J. McCarron, he was actually on 105.5 WNSP with Mark Heim, and said he heard that Brian Harsin was told. Then he went on The Ringer, and they got a little bit bigger reach, so that got all the news. And then Paul Feinbaum and an Auburn beat writer, Tobias Wilborn, said that was wrong. But then, I don't know if you saw, Justin Hokanson from Auburn on 3 said, by the way, Harsin was offered a $12 million buyout to leave, and he never responded. So he was actually told, you can leave, but here's $12 million. I don't know what the actual amount that he's owed. I heard it was 18, and if he waits until December, it's 15. But obviously, the way that Auburn treated Brian Harsin and his family last year, he's not taking time less than what he's owed. He's not leaving. He's not doing Auburn any favor. So he's going to stick around until they say you can leave, and he's going to take every last time. And there's probably a big payment like Gus had, 30 days after he's let go. That was the kind of, I will say, I did predict the kind of game. I thought it was going to be like that. I thought Auburn would cover. I didn't bet them, but I thought Auburn would cover because I'm not sure how good LSU is. But you better get LSU this year because moving forward, they're going to be tough.
They are. And I looked at Auburn this past weekend and thought, well, the game will probably be close, but you fumbled the ball 6 times in Saturday night's game. 6 times. You lose 4. You lose 2 of them, and 4 of them you recovered. Then you had 2 interceptions. And it's like this team gets up, and as soon as something goes wrong, they just collapse. And Auburn's up 17-0, second quarter, and there's a strip and score by B.J. Ogilvy for LSU, and that was it. And then Auburn has LSU pinned way back, and it was tough. It's tough to watch, but where Auburn's got to be careful. Browne Harsin, talking to a very knowledgeable friend of mine, Stat Tiger, has never been given a real honeymoon. He came in, inherited the reason Gus Malzahn was fired was because the program was a mess, recruiting, lack of player development, and all that. So Harsin comes in. They're 6-2. They lose to A&M November 6th, 20-3. Give up no offensive touchdowns. They gave up 4 field goals and then a scoop and score after Bo Nix fumbled the ball. And then they are up 28-3 against Mississippi State and lose that game at home. Just the lack of offense in the second half. There's something really just bad. Schematically. I've never seen anything like it, David. No. A team, and it's been since last year. But you've got to be really careful. Does Auburn want to be another Tennessee after Phil Fulmer? Now, maybe they've got a good one. We'll find out Saturday. Tennessee goes on the road and the wheels fall off and they lose to LSU. You got to say, well, really, what have they done this year? If Alabama comes down October 15th.
Let's not conflate the two situations, right? Tennessee was a dumpster fire. All right, Jeremy Pruitt, although legal now, I guess, Jeremy Pruitt was giving out money, allegedly, at a drive-through. All right, it was a dumpster fire. What Josh Heupel had said, Josh Heupel's been there a year and a half, and what they've done is all of a sudden Tennessee is a contender in the SEC East and as good as offensively as anybody in the nation. So if they lose at LSU, I'm not bailing on Josh Heupel.
Oh, no, not at all. I'm just saying I was saying they've come a long way. They hired 4 coaches, Kiffin, 1 year, Derek Dooley, 3 years, 5 years of Butch Jones, 3 years, Jeremy.
Well, that's okay. So that's a different story. But that's Auburn.
I'm saying going through a lot of coaches. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
You don't want to be
Auburn being Auburn.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Java, we call it.
All right. Now you're technically, if you get another coach next year, that's going to be your 3rd coach in 4 seasons.
Exactly.
All right. And so if you don't, so that's why, and we've talked about this, Rob, that's why guys like Brent Venables declined. That's why guys like Billy Napier declined. They didn't want there because, regardless of the up and downs and the pressure that Napier may be feeling at Florida, he's not going anywhere. He's not going anywhere for a few years, right? Yeah. They're gonna have the recruiting, it's gonna turn over and see where we are in 3 or 4 years before they make a decision on Billy Napier. But that's not the problem. That's the deal at Auburn, right? And so now you got all these high profile names, whether it be Deion Sanders or Hugh Freeze or Lane Kiffin, right? And then what happens if those guys don't want it, right? Although you would think Hugh Freeze would want it. I don't know why he wouldn't want it outside of the same thing may be happening, but it'll be interesting to see where Auburn goes. I presume they're going to have a new coach, right, and give me all the content I can have. But you're right. You got to be careful. You could be spinning your wheels, and that's the problem, right? I mean, we talked about this before, right? Terry Bowden goes, you can be 10-0 at Auburn, and that's great for your career, but not great for your job. So,
and
exactly. And remember, if none of this would be going on if he beat Alabama last year. If they just beat Alabama, he'd be in the clear.
And I mean,
not
very easily,
necessarily deservingly, but in the clear.
Yeah, Auburn could have won. If you look at the way they lost, 3 or 4 of those games by about a total of 15 points. And it's the second half play calling. It's not working, but you got to be careful with that. Just getting rid of a coach after a year and a half, 2 years, who's going to want to come in? You better be looking at the big picture, because who's the next Nick Saban out there? I mean, he wasn't that good at Michigan State. At LSU, he was 48-16. There's a lot of candidates out there, but just, sometimes if you got the wrong guy, though, you got to make a change. It may cost you a buyout, but in the long run, it'll cost you a lot more. Georgia and Alabama love what's happening at Auburn. Georgia and Alabama are getting anyone they want in recruiting, and Auburn used to get a lot of those players. They're not getting them now, and they want Auburn to keep Browne Harsin. Alabama and Georgia fans think he is a great choice for Auburn. Auburn fans don't feel that way. So Auburn's got to figure the way out. They're in the ditch right now, but it's not like they're getting blown out 49-0 every game. So I'm going to switch to Alabama and Arkansas. That was 49-26. What's the status on Bryce Young right now?
I don't know. Do you have an update? I've not.
No. Yeah, I'm wondering.
I haven't heard anything more than I thought Nick Saban said after the game. It was not a serious shoulder injury. That's all I heard. Yeah. I don't have any further update than that.
Okay. Well, the way Alabama went on the road, and Jimmy Hodge had talked about this on the show last week, of their last 5 road games, average margin of victory was like 3 or 4 points. They lost at A&M, and then a bunch of other close road wins. I think they got tired of hearing that and went to prove people, hey, we're a good team. Alabama's good.
Well,
they're number one.
Also, I'll tell you, Rob, I went back and forth trying to figure out if I was going to bet that ball game. I mean, I literally went back and forth. Alabama, take that show on the road. Okay, they're better than Arkansas. I think Arkansas is top 25. I don't think they're top 10, as maybe some had them earlier this year. And then you hear Arkansas is really bad on the pass defense, and that, there's a chance that Alabama may, take big time advantage of that. All right, so maybe they'll cover. But then you see what they do on the road, and they got the one blowout win, Mississippi State, and that's it. And then you're like, well, this could go either way. And let's be honest, they did cover, but kind of by one score, right? So people were actually watching the game not to see who was going to win, but see if they were going to win money. And again, I think Arkansas is, a nice top 25 team. They're just not on that top 10 level just yet. They're not quite there yet. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. They'll probably win 8 or 9 games, right? They should have beaten A&M, right? A&M's not any good. Jimbo Fisher is living in, 2005. And so, I think Alabama obviously is still the team to beat. Georgia struggled with Missouri. All right, they haven't played well the last couple of weeks. Ohio State looks as good as anybody. And so, we'll see, can Ole Miss step up? Does Oklahoma State step up? That fourth team is still, Clemson. We'll see. Clemson takes care of NC State. So we'll see who that fourth team is.
Yeah, I want to ask you about specifically A&M and Mississippi State. Jimbo Fisher starts off with Haynes King and then switches to Max Johnson. But I felt like going into Starkville that Mississippi State, go back to that fateful day, October 4th, 2014, the greatest day perhaps in Mississippi college football history. That's when A&M was number 4 in the country, and Mississippi State laid the wood to them back in 2014. Later that day, Ole Miss beat number 1 ranked Alabama 23-17 in Oxford. And all of a sudden, when the playoff rankings come out in that November, Mississippi State was ranked number 1. So for about 5 weeks, it was just unbelievable. Well, I felt like the same thing would happen. A&M coming to Starkville, Mississippi State, better team. That LSU loss hurt them a lot. And they just 42-24 A&M. What is it other than they've got a lot of money and they had a great recruiting class? Is it that keeps sucking people in to pick A&M to be the school to knock Alabama off their perch at number one?
Well, I mean, they still don't have a quarterback, right? Haynes King. Right. We didn't know about Haynes King because he was, he got hurt last year. And then we've seen Max Johnson. Max Johnson's a good quarterback. I was told he was a great quarterback, but he's a good quarterback, but he's not in the upper echelon. And Jimbo Fisher's offense has not, taken it to the next level, right? I mean, Saban had to come, kicking and screaming to the next level, tried to change the rules so they couldn't speed people up. And this is what we really want. And, went out and got Lane Kiffin as a reclamation project, and that worked. And then Steve Sarkisian. And now, Alabama does the offense that everybody else was doing, and they're better at it because they have better players. And so until Jimbo Fisher gets it to the next level and gets a quarterback, they're already thinking he's going to win it next year. If Lane Kiffin, and I certainly don't know, all of Ole Miss's, juniors and seniors who are leaving, but I think the quarterbacks are coming back. If Lane Kiffin stays at Ole Miss, and maybe one of the reasons why is because, next year I think Alabama is going to be down a little bit. Although we saw Jalen Milroe play pretty well this past weekend, it's really hard when you have to replace a Bryce Young and a Will Anderson, and then all those guys, all the other guys on defense as well, the Jordan Battles of the world, the Henry To'oTo'os of the world, the two safeties. So if Alabama is going to be taken, it's going to be next year.
Video. All right, Dave, let's do this. Look, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come right back with more Sidelines on this Monday. I want to talk about other college football games. There's a lot of them, and we'll do it in just a minute.
Kitchens and bathrooms make a home, and the design teams at Kitchens Unlimited know how to make kitchens and baths. They know it all because they have seen it all. Kitchens Unlimited has been designing and remodeling the Mid-South's kitchens and baths for over 50 years. Check out their showroom at 3550 Summer Avenue or visit them on the web at kitchensunlimited.net.
If you have a crash, dent or ding, go to G.E. Patterson and BBG for Tom Martin's Body Shop.
Come on down to Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company, located on Historical Square in Collierville, Tennessee. Hewlett & Dunn is the second largest Filson dealer in the Southeast, stocked with Southern brands you know and trust. And a new inventory arriving all the time. Do yourself or someone you know and love a favor and visit this store. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-City exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
As an agricultural producer, no matter where you farm, minimum tillage is a primary concern each and every season. At House Industries in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, we manufacture equipment to help you maximize efficiency when planting and watering your crop. Pieces like the pulverizer, bedder roller, 3-bar do-all, and bed conditioner assist you in optimizing seedbed preparation and ultimately your bottom line. Visit HouseIndustriesInc.com to locate the dealer nearest you.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne back.
Kitchens and bathrooms make a home, and the design teams at Kitchens Unlimited know how to make kitchens and baths. They know it all because they have seen it all. Kitchens Unlimited has been designing and remodeling the Mid-South's kitchens and baths for over 50 years. Check out their showroom at 3550 Summer Avenue or visit them on the web at kitchensunlimited.net.
If you have a crash, dent or ding, go to G.E. Patterson and BBG for Tom Martin's Body Shop.
Come on down to Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company, located on Historical Square in Collierville, Tennessee. Hewlett & Dunn is the second largest Filson dealer in the Southeast, stocked with Southern brands you know and trust. And a new inventory arriving all the time. Do yourself or someone you know and love a favor and visit this store. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
As an agricultural producer, no matter where you farm, minimum tillage is a primary concern each and every season. At House Industries in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, we manufacture equipment to help you maximize efficiency when planting and watering your crop. Pieces like the pulverizer, bed roller, 3-bar do-all, and bed conditioner assist you in optimizing seedbed preparation and ultimately your bottom line. Visit HouseIndustriesInc.com to locate the dealer nearest you.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Okay, Rob Browne back here with you. David Schultz, getting through some issues here on a Monday.
All right.
But I want to ask you about the other games around the SEC. I mean, Florida had an easy win yesterday. Ironically, they played on Sunday against Eastern Washington. Then you go, and I think about this this coming weekend. Well, I guess really before I get to that, I want to talk about that Georgia-Missouri game. It is the second week in a row Georgia struggled a little bit, and I can't really put my finger on it other than the fact that everybody's telling them, and I've been thinking this Georgia team may be ahead of where they were last year, at least offensively, but you got to be careful with that because they go on the road to Missouri and they had to play a full 60. What do you think is happening with Georgia? Where do you see the problems right now? Is it offense?
I think they're I think they're bored. They know how good they are. We've seen it in the NFL with Kansas City, right? How do you explain what the Chiefs did? The Chiefs lose to Indianapolis. The Colts are awful. And then they, hang 41 on Tampa Bay, who's got a good defense. And so I just think they're bored with who they were playing. Nobody thought that, after last week, after Missouri imploded against Auburn, that Georgia was going to have a problem with Missouri. Nobody thought that was coming down to the last 5 minutes of the football game. And so, Georgia didn't think that. I don't think Missouri thought that. I thought, Missouri probably think, maybe we can hang with them for a quarter or something along those lines, get off to a good start, maybe force a turnover or two. But nobody thought that was going to be a football game, and Georgia played like it. And then, they were down 2 scores, and they had to come from behind and win. I don't know if I'm, punting it away on 4th down with like 3.5 minutes to go. I don't know why I'm doing that one. But other than that, I just think Georgia's bored, and I think when they get better competition, they will show up and play like they have. And now, having said that, I still think they should have dropped in the polls, just like Alabama dropped when they lost or when they beat Texas by 1. Georgia should not be ranked number 1. They have not played like they were the number 1 team in the nation the last 2 weeks. That doesn't really mean a whole lot, but I do think they should have dropped, and they did.
Well, I'll agree with what you're saying about Georgia's bored, and that happens to people. I mean, and think about Alabama when they went out to play Texas. Everybody was telling the narrative was Alabama was going to drop 49 or 56 points, and Texas might be lucky to score a touchdown. It was a big game for Texas. Yeah, and, a lot of people did. But we talked about it was also a big deal to Alabama. But Texas, I talked to a number of people who were at that game, said it was the greatest home environment in modern era of Texas football. And they came up short, but it showed them what they're capable of doing. And when you're a team right now like Alabama or Georgia, David, everybody, you're their game of the year when you come to campus. That's right. I just think that's where Georgia is right now. And just what the doctor ordered coming in Saturday, the Auburn Tigers.
Right. So, yes. So, well, here's the thing, though. a scared and desperate animal is always the toughest. So you got to be careful. And that's what Auburn is. And as we've seen, the Auburn defense is still pretty good, still playing hard. Even the offense is still playing hard even if they're not executing. So we shall see. In fact, that's what, Kane Womack said for the first time ever. South Alabama is 4-1, and they've gone from the huntee or the hunter to the huntee. And so now they got a couple of ball games coming up with Monroe next in 2 weeks, and then Troy after that. 2 games that they should win, 2 games that they'll be favored in. And yet I think they are still up in the air because now the teams are coming for South Alabama versus what had been before. So nobody thought South Alabama was going to give UCLA a battle. Nobody thought that, right? They were more than 2 touchdown underdogs. I was shocked it was even that close. And yet Kane Womack will tell you they should have beaten who are now undefeated UCLA Bruins. So it's a big difference when you're the hunter and the huntee as everyone. And the Cajuns, I will say this, despite some weird decisions and some not very good offense, the defensive line played really well. They did an outstanding job of shutting down what is a pretty prolific South Alabama running game. So you do get some teams that, somewhere along the way, some aspect of their team steps up when, they're expected to lose in a big way. And that's what happened to the Cajuns. And somehow they tied the ball game up. They didn't score. Rob, the Cajuns did not score an offensive point in their first 10 possessions of the game. Their offense came from a punt return. So, of course, they scored 10 points in the last 2 possessions of the game, and still they let it slip away. Can I give you the situation? I didn't get it. 2nd down, incomplete for South Alabama. South Alabama's called for holding. I think they're on their own 25, and the Cajuns declined the penalty. So instead of 2nd and 20, it was 3rd and 10 with 30 seconds left to go, and they declined the penalty. I don't understand it.
Well, I mean, think about South Alabama's program, the progress they've made. They're kicking themselves about losing on the road at UCLA, and that UCLA team is now 5-0. That's a sign of progress right there.
Well, South Alabama would either be in the top 25 or on the verge of the top 25.
Yeah. And they're going to always get players. Look where they're located. I mean, my God, Mobile and Baldwin County alone, you could build a powerhouse program. They're going to get kids out of the Florida Panhandle, Louisiana, Mississippi. But I tell you, the school that suffered, it's amazing.
Well, he's done a great job out with the portal, right? I mean, you got guys that were starters last year that are not on the 2 deep this year. Yeah. All right. And they had a couple offensive linemen who quit because they weren't playing. They were starters last year, not playing this year. They just quit. They up and quit. Running back stopped playing, up and quit. And so, when you have that, the depth is good. So whereas Brian Harsin couldn't find anybody in the portal or someone good enough to be on, an SEC offensive lineman in the portal, now you have, South Alabama, who has a revamped offensive line, has literally like 8 to 10 players on the defensive line that they rotate throughout. So, here's what scares me, Rob, is that South Alabama has one of those Raging Cajun years where they lose. Their only loss is going to be to a Power 5 team, and Kane Womack is going to end up being your coach at Auburn. Maybe.
Well, and again, Auburn's got to be careful to be just rotating coaches in, but Kane Womack is a good coach. There's no question about that. And the Sun Belt just plays really good football. But are they just a training ground for Power 5 schools?
Because you can't
financially. I know that.
Right?
I know.
You can't. It comes down to money, and no matter what. And so this was a discussion I actually had with somebody. When Billy Napier is turning down these jobs. I mean, Billy Napier. You start looking back, and why didn't he take Auburn? It pays so much more than the Cajuns or Mississippi State or South Carolina. Billy Napier grew up the son of a high school football coach, right? You're lucky if he's making $50 to $100,000 a year. And Billy Napier is in 4 years, he's made more money than he probably ever thought he was going to make. I think in his 4th year with the Cajuns, he was making $1 million. I think his grand total was $2 million. So he's like, I can't get any happier money-wise. I never thought I was going to make $2 million a year. Come on, making $2 million in a year. So he can pick and choose where he's going to go. And I think the same thing is for Kane Womack. Kane, he grew up as the son of a college football coach. So he always thought he was going to be here. And he had other opportunities to take more money than what South Alabama was offering as coordinators in different Power 5 schools. But he wanted to be a head coach. still making I don't know what he's making, $750,000. He'll probably get a raise if he wants to stay. So he can be in the same spot as Napier and pick and choose where he wants to go. Keep an eye on this. What would happen if Kiffin gets Auburn? Womack is a Mississippi guy. He's from Mississippi. So would he take the Ole Miss job? So things like that can happen. But Kane Womack's going to be in a position where he gets to pick and choose, and he may not necessarily go to the first spot.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to talk with. I'm looking forward. Jason Caldwell, inside the Auburn Tigers, will be on here with us in just a minute. We're going to talk about that.
2021 Alabama Sports Writer of the Year.
Absolutely proud. We absolutely
with respect.
We do. A proud son of Sylacauga, Alabama, the marble capital of the world. Now, Dave, you make so many good points, and you're really good about making.
Just stop the conversation there. I made so many good points. It was a great day. We'll see you next week.
No, we're not done yet. I was just going to say,
okay.
what I love is the fact what you just said about Cade Womack. I don't think Cade Womack, most people don't know that much about him. You put out a lot of really good content on Twitter, little sound bites, minute and a half, 2 minutes of his press conferences, what he's saying. And it gets you more familiar with the mindset of these coaches, because all the Power 5 coaches start somewhere. Again, Sun Belt, it could be Mountain West. I would be careful bringing in somebody, though, that doesn't know the culture. Well, a guy like Kane Womack knows the culture, knows about recruiting in the South. He knows where all the high schools are. So, I mean, that's the beauty of it. And I want to tell you, man, how much we appreciate you taking time to be with us. And again, let people know how they can follow you on your show and Twitter. And let's do this again next week. And it's a lot of fun always.
All right. At SchultzyCast, SchultzyCast. Also, we got a new Locked On Sunbelt. We do that every day. Your conference every day, Monday through Friday. We got a new one up. We recapped week 5. We recapped the Cajuns in South Alabama, and we talked to Georgia State broadcaster. He's been doing it 40 years, Dave Cohen. They got their first win at Army this past week. Did the Georgia State Panthers, and it's Georgia State, Georgia Southern week. So we find out who the real GSU is this week. So that'll be fun. But you can get Locked On Sunbelt wherever you find your podcasts.
Hey, I'll be listening, man. Thanks so much. Have a great week.
Thanks, Rob. You too.
All right. Thanks. Jason Caldwell, inside the Auburn Tigers, joins us right now. Jason, Alabama Sports Writer of the Year in 2021. I'm with David Schultz. Pay him homage, and we were in Sylacauga yesterday. And, Jason, I know I love hamburgers. Milo's Hamburgers. There's a new one right there on 280 in Sylacauga. And Audrey and I, we were at Lake Martin the last Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Went to the Auburn game. Came back through there. Sylacauga is one of the cleanest cities, Jason. Memphis used to be like that. We would win City Beautiful and all, but whoever the mayor is in Sylacauga, and whatever it is about that town, it's like Mayberry. It is an awesome town. And we went to the drive-through twice just because it was fully staffed. Everybody's got a positive attitude. I love the marble capital of the world. Wish the Tigers would have won, but, this group of kids, say what you want about the offensive play calling. My take is this group of kids that plays for Auburn, they didn't quit. They fight. Just give me more Derek Halls. Just, God, please create more Derek Halls. We need more number 29s.
Yeah, they got some guys that, they got after it. They played hard. And, I mean, that's what you expect. I mean, they were, they're 3-1.
Yeah.
If you don't play hard in week 5 and you're 3-1, then something's absolutely wrong. And they they played hard. They did that. They put themselves in a great position to win the game. It's really hard to fathom losing a 17-0 lead to a team that can't throw the football, and that's what happened Saturday. I mean, LSU was dreadful in the passing game on Saturday. Had less than 100 yards passing, and Auburn's defense had a lot to do with that. They played well. Robbie Ashford did a good job, but just too many turnovers and mistakes and decisions that just seemingly were every time you turn around, it was I thought probably the wrong decision to make at times. And led to them, losing the game that they probably should have won, and probably balanced out the Missouri game, because you probably should have lost that game and you won it. So it probably balanced out a little bit on Saturday.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I was going to say Auburn, they should be 4-1, but probably should have lost that Missouri game. I'm glad Auburn won. You'll never catch me pulling for Auburn to lose because I don't like the coach. I'm not like that. And I think that watching LSU, they're not a great team. Jaden Daniels, welcome to a night game on the road in the SEC. Jordan Hare, and the crowd was into it. It was a great atmosphere. 50,000 people tailgating outside during the game. There's just nothing like SEC football. What is it about the second half? This started last year, really going back to the Texas A&M game. Auburn's second half offense is as bad as I see anywhere.
Yeah, I don't know. There's no really rhyme or reason for it. And quite honestly, it's something that, that Gus Malzahn had issues with at times too, against better teams. Had issues in the second half of those games. And I think a lot of it comes down to just having enough guys. It's not a really talented roster, especially offensively. And it comes down to sooner or later, you're not scheming. You're not, adjustments made is getting the football to your best players. That's the adjustment part of things. And I saw that some again Saturday. Javarius Johnson had 2 huge catches in the first quarter, had 73 yards, had 1 catch for 1 yard the rest of the game. I mean, he's one of your best players right now on this Auburn offense. And getting him the football is part of it. And part of it is some depth at times, lack of depth. Issues at times, and then got to take advantage of opportunities. You're down there, so many times, and you miss opportunity. You turn the ball over, throw a crazy wide receiver pass that gets intercepted. I mean, you can't come up empty on those kind of opportunities, and that's what happens time and time again.
Yeah, and you look at, you're right. It's the same thing I saw with Gus. The first 12 or 16 plays would be scripted. Auburn might get out 14-0 on somebody. The other teams would adjust, and Auburn never would. I see the same thing happening, but a lot of it does have to do with personnel. You've got to get your best players more touches on the ball. Tank Bigsby, he's hit so, I guess, within 1 yard on average after getting the ball. The offensive line, he just doesn't have protection. Most of his yards are after contact. You've got some great running backs at Auburn, but they get everything on their own. It is so frustrating to see that. What about Auburn's move to Brandon Council at center, third team? This guy may be a charm. He's looked pretty good.
Yeah, I thought it was the right move. I thought he did some good things. There's something to build on. You look at this offense, and I thought it gave him a much better opportunity. Yeah, running game, had some issues at times, but I thought Jarquez Hunter had plenty of room, and I thought he made some plays. He just didn't get the ball enough. 6 carries for him. He averaged about 6 yards a carry. He just didn't get enough touches on Saturday, and that's one of the things that in a close game once again, I agree with
Jason, let me do this.
Yeah.
Hold those thoughts. We're going to take a quick commercial break and be right back. I want to talk more about Jarquez Hunter after this quick break. More Sidelines.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House Equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Rob Browne back here with you, broadcasting live from Red River Ford Toyota in Wynne, Arkansas. Keep in mind they're open Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Service department Saturday mornings, 7:30 a.m. to 12:30. 25 service bays. You're not going to have to wait forever. Come in there, get your oil serviced, whatever. They are quick and efficient and fair on the price. 6 carries in that game. What were the total number of carries for Auburn's running back room Saturday night versus LSU? I know there were, a total of 14 in the Penn State game, and the quarterbacks got 20. And then Missouri, I don't remember those, but I'm curious what they are in comparison.
Yeah, I got it right here. Let's see. 18. So your running backs had 18 carries for 80 yards.
Yeah.
And Darquez Leonard had 6 for 35. Tank had 12 for 50. Had 5 yards and lost it, so he had 45 net. One of those is 23 yards, so he didn't have as much success, but still, 18 for 80 yards. You start talking about, those kind of numbers. You go that's good enough to win if you're getting a few more touches here or there.
Yeah, and that's a disturbing trend. I mean, far from me to say, who would say it's not a disturbing trend? And what would you compare Eric Kiesau's offense to previous Auburn offensive coordinators or anybody else in the SEC?
I don't know. I don't know that there's anything I think about in terms of Auburn offenses. In the past, because it has a mix of spread a little bit, but they get under center some, do some things. I don't know what to compare it to right now, because it's just been such a search for the right fit, and you've had a couple of different quarterbacks that you're playing. I think now that it's settled into Robbie Ashford, it almost feels a little bit more like 97 Auburn Damian Craig. A little bit in that kind of, and it's probably, quite honestly, probably the best opportunity this team has now. That team couldn't run it a lick. They didn't run it at all. Yeah. This team has a chance to run it a little bit more than that, but it kind of feels a little bit more like that right now, where you're going to just put the ball in his hands and see what happens.
That 97 team that you're talking about, Auburn played Tennessee for the SEC championship. We had Brother Oliver coaching the defense. I remember Auburn's leading rusher. You had Markeith Cooper in there. You
Rusty
had
Williams.
Rusty Williams out of Moncks Corner, South Carolina. I think, if I'm not mistaken, his total rushing yards when Auburn played Tennessee in Atlanta for the championship were 267 yards for the season. And that's I like that comparison to 97, Jason.
Yeah, it was somewhere around in there. Yeah, Rusty had 277 yards rushing. Fred Beasley 244, DeMontre Carter 233. So you had a team that averaged about 70 yards rushing a game, and this team obviously has much more options than that, and will be better than that. But when you think about like Saturday, for instance, going up against Georgia, how much can you depend on, how much would you able to run the football in that game, and how quickly do you have to go, hey, we're going to have to throw it and spread the field and do some things. It's a challenging thing when you think about that. You think about Alabama coming down the road a little bit later, defensively, Mississippi State defensively, the way they play against the run. Can this team establish a run enough to take some of that pressure? Because, I think obviously you look at it and Robbie Ashford, putting him in the shotgun and making some creative plays here or there. Right now, it looks like the most sustainable offense for this team.
Yeah, and I like that Damian Craig in 97. Without him, Auburn is dead in the water. And then you had Rusty Williams, Fred Beasley, and DeMontre Carter, Markeith Cooper. You had those four, and DeMontre Carter. Those were all small backs, but those rushing stats for the season, none of them over 300 yards. Those are scary numbers. I mean, Jimmy Hodge, I know you got some questions for Jason Caldwell inside the Auburn Tigers, talking about I was trying to compare that offense that Auburn runs now with anything that I can remember. And he said 1997. I think that's Jason. That's exactly. I feel the same way. Jimmy? Okay. Jimmy, you there? Okay. Well, anyway, let's go back and think about this. With this, Robbie Ashford, he's an athletic quarterback. Damian Craig had a better arm. I mean, Damian Craig was a great college quarterback. I want to be optimistic and say, hey, Auburn can do this. But what do you see going from here? I mean, it's not like the Penn State game in the second half was as bad as we can remember. But Auburn against LSU, I don't know how good LSU is, but where does Auburn go from here? I mean, they're 3-2. That record is, that's what they are. You're right. If they should have lost Missouri, they won it, and they could have won LSU, but they didn't, but it balances out. So you're 3-2. Your next road trip is on the road to a Georgia team that has struggled by Georgia's recent standards in their last two games. Convince me Auburn wins this game.
Yeah, on Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be hard to convince that they win. If it wasn't a really good Georgia team and it was a really good Auburn team, it's been 2005. That's the last time Auburn won there, which seems hard to fathom. The issue for me right now is the last time Auburn played a game where it didn't have the vast majority of fans in the stands, South Carolina last year. They played 8 straight games in the state of Alabama. You've had 7 home games and a bowl game in Birmingham. This team hasn't gone on the road since South Carolina last year, other than a bowl game in Birmingham. Robbie Ashford has never started a game on the road, has never played in a game on the road. That makes for a very difficult situation come Saturday. And he's a talented guy, and I think they'll make some plays offensively. Can you sustain it? Can you score enough to win a game against that Georgia team? And Auburn's defense is playing better. Georgia's offense not playing as well. I look at a spread that's 29 now. I don't know that it gets to 29. I don't know that Georgia scores 29 based on what I've seen the last couple of weeks out of them. Just don't know if Auburn can score enough to make that one tight down the stretch. But, unless this Georgia team finds something in the running game, Stetson Bennett is not a good enough quarterback to stand back there and throw it without them running the football. He's good. He may be good enough to win Saturday, but not good enough to be what they were last season.
Yeah, and I'm sitting there watching Missouri played a really good game. They played their butts off. And I look at Georgia, and our previous guest before you came on, Dave Schultz from WNSP in Mobile, made a point. I think Georgia's just bored. And I can see that, but 2 weeks in a row. I think the most logical thinkers would have thought, okay, well, Kirby's going to light Georgia up after letting Kent State, 39-22. That's enough, and he'll get them. Well, they go on the road to Missouri, and they're down 12-3. I mean, they have to come back and play really hard to get that win. Is there anything about Georgia that you see Auburn could exploit if that's possible?
Yeah, I think it's Georgia's running game. I just don't think this is a running game that you look at and go, man, that's an overwhelming. They ran for 200 yards against South Carolina, but Oregon, it was 132 yards. Now, they had 4 touchdowns, but 127 against Sanford. and 36 for 169 against Missouri. So they're not just running for 400 yards and knocking people off the ball. Meanwhile, they've passed for 439, 352, 339, 272, and 312. And so when you look at this team, this is not that physical knock you off the ball Georgia team. I don't think they're as good at running back. And I think that's the thing when you have to depend on the passing game sometimes. Sometimes when a guy like Stetson Bennett, he wasn't very good Saturday for much of that game. And it's hard to get when you can run the ball and you knock people off the ball, that shows up every week. That doesn't have an off day. And I don't see that out of them right now. We'll see if they come out and give a little bit more of that this week. I wouldn't be surprised to see them go, hey, we got to get back to who we are. And that's not who they've been the first 5 weeks.
Well, they certainly got the talent. They talk about the big red wall, the offensive line. Is it maybe Matt Luke is not coaching the offensive line? He stepped out after last season. Is that it?
Yeah, I think it's some of that. I just don't think they don't have, in my opinion, they've had, first round NFL running backs for, ages, and I don't know that they have that guy right now. I think you look at them and you look at kind of the way that running back room works. And they're still good and they're still talented. But when you look at the group, I just don't see those guys out of, Kendall Milton's a good player. Kenny McIntosh is a good player. I don't see that guy yet out of them where I go, man, that's the next great Georgia running back. Dejon Edwards is a solid player. He had 100 yards rushing against Missouri last week, but I don't see those guys when I look at it. They were highly recruited, and they're big and physical, but all those things don't necessarily work out to being, that NFL elite talent at running back. And I think that's a little bit of it as well.
Yeah. Where does Auburn, if you look at this, Mark Green would always say it's not about the matchups. It's more about how you match up on game day. So where does Auburn match up going in where you think on game day they could have an advantage against Georgia?
Yeah. As much as we talked about what Georgia's not, they're still really good on both sides of the ball. That's the issue. Yeah. I don't know that – I don't know I go anywhere and go, man, I like Auburn's favorably in that. I do like Auburn's defense to be able to do some things against this team. Now, the issue for Auburn's defense right now is just some depth at key spots, particularly at that edge position. And with Eku Leota, out for a while, potentially the rest of this season, you start getting – just dangerously thin at one of the most important positions on the field. Derek Hall, I think, almost played every snap the other night. You look at him and Marcus Bragg, Dylan Brooks behind them played 3 or 4 snaps Saturday. And if you don't have anybody to spell those guys, sooner or later you start going, whew, Georgia laying on you all game can get rough. Do they have enough depth and can they make enough moves to try to give those guys a little bit of a break here or there?
What about Eku Leota? What's his status? I know he got banged up.
Yeah, that's what I said. I think right now he's out for a while, potentially the rest of this year is what we're hearing. So if that's the case, then you're down to really 2 guys, and Dylan Brooks being the third. But depending on Marcus Bragg to be a starter and to play, 90% of the snaps. I mean, Derek Hall's going to be 95, 98% of the snaps is what he did Saturday. It's hard to maintain that over the course of a season. And now this is week 6 in a row. You got 2 straight games to get to 7 straight games without a bye week for this Auburn team. And you're going on the road to face 2 physical football teams. And what's crazy is Ole Miss offensively may be more physical than Georgia is right now.
Yeah. And you're right. Back to back on the road. And Auburn comes out at 3-2. And all the chatter out there about Browne Harsin, what's going to happen with him, that doesn't help. But one thing that and I see it, the team, they close ranks and they're pretty good at focusing on what their job is. And I think too, looking at Georgia and Ole Miss, Auburn goes on the road and somehow wins them both. I mean, everything changes. But I think that's going to be just really difficult. But one interesting bit of trivia, no Auburn coach has ever lost on the road in Oxford to Ole Miss and survived to come back the following season as the head coach for any number of reasons. But Pat Dye in 1992 lost to Ole Miss in Oxford, did not come back, resigned. In 2008, Tommy Tuberville, 17-10. He wasn't back the next year. 2012, Hugh Freeze came in his first year. Gene Chizik, that was, Auburn's worst team in 62 years since the 0-10 1950 that lost to Wofford. I don't know if Brian Harsin is aware of that. He could care less what I think, but there's something to be said about the way Auburn's going. But it's to me, what you said about 1997, that Auburn team, had they had a better running game, may have been national champions. I just look back at that, but I don't see that out of this team. And when I look at just the players, when you're talking to them, the offense that Auburn's running, can they change it enough? Or what can they do to make it better? Because if you continue this trend of not getting the ball to Tank or Jarquez Hunter or Damari Austin, how are you going to beat anybody in this league? Even Georgia knows that.
Yeah, but you are what you are, and if we saw it against Penn State. If you try to line up right now and just run the ball almost exclusively, and have 9 guys in the box, then they're not good enough to do that. And so you've got to be able to throw it first. And we've seen that the last couple of weeks, throwing it on first down to set up the run. And they've thrown it on first down. They made some plays. Now you got to start to be able to put some things together in the running game to give that a little bit of a balance.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's going to be a fun one to watch. Jason, let people real quick. We're going to a break. Let people know how they can follow you, and look forward to having you on again next week. And hopefully that's some good news from Auburn.
Yep, you can check us out at autigers.com, auburnundercover.com, as well as part of the network, Auburn 247 Network. And you can also follow me on Twitter at ITATJason.
All right, that is Alabama Sports Writer of the Year, Jason Caldwell of Inside the Auburn Tigers. Great stuff as always. We're going to be back after the break. Tommy Kane joins us over in Atlanta, talking some ACC football, takeaways from Clemson, NC State, where that league is going. It's an interesting year, long way to go in the college football season. But again, those of you listening, Kicks 96.3, Alexander City, Lake Martin, Radio Alabama, and 680 in Atlanta. Thank you. We'll be right back.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne back here with you. Tommy Kane is going to be on with us now talking ACC football. And I tell you, those numbers that we just got in talking, Tommy, with Jason Caldwell inside the Auburn Tigers about Auburn's running game and the offense, you got to go back to 1997. Auburn played in the SEC championship game against Peyton Manning in Tennessee. And none of their running backs in the 12th game of the season, as it was back in the old 11-game schedule days, none of the running backs, Fred Beasley, Markeith Cooper, Devontae Carter, Rusty Williams had over 300 yards for the entire season. Thank you, Damian Craig, and his incredible athletic ability to keep Auburn alive in that game. But I don't see Damian Craig on that Auburn roster, kind of like Chris Farley in the old deal. Is that Bill Shakespeare over there? I don't think so. I don't see Damian on the roster. But how you doing this morning?
I'm good, guys. I'm good. Thanks for having me on. I'm actually with my family. We're down in Edisto Beach, South Carolina for a little fall break. My kids are on fall break, so we're down here hanging out at the beach and hoping we get some sunshine this weekend.
Absolutely, man. And thank you for taking time. Very, very kind of you. I know you're on vacation and doing it. Let's go back over the weekend. I was watching a lot of football. Clemson and NC State. Game day was up there. These are two good teams. And I know people love to say the ACC's down, this conference is down. Look around you, folks. I mean, there's bad football in every league, and there's good football in every league. But I think NC State under Dave Doran, they lost 30-20. But I think there's some takeaway on the positive side from this. That I mean, they won last year against Clemson, but they can play. They're getting better players. But what was the takeaway? How good is Clemson?
You know what, guys? We went to the game. Fantastic atmosphere Saturday night. Just the place was rocking. I mean, everybody was anticipating the matchup, of course, but they were also just so glad that we were all there and it wasn't pouring rain or the weather wasn't bad. So that was a lot of fun for everybody to be there. But, take away from the game, Clemson lives and dies with DJ, with the quarterback. I mean, he really does. Will Shipley is a great dynamic, shifty runner, but when DJ's playing well and when he's throwing the ball well and when he's running and has that extra weapon in his legs, they're a good team, of course. I mean, top 5 in the country. But NC State played well in the first half. They really did. But I think what it came down to, from what I saw, was just offensive line for NC State just really couldn't sustain the way they wanted to. Couldn't get the running game going the whole game. Devin Leary got sacked, I think, 3 or 4 times. There was a lot of pressure on him, but overall, it was a fantastic college football game. It was played really well. The first half was great. NC State just didn't have the overall, just the stamina, I think, from the offensive line standpoint to really continue to hold on offensively. But I tell you what, the other thing is too, guys, when you go into Clemson to play a game, and they're as good as they are, you got to go in there and hopefully play a perfect game. I don't mean like every pass is completed, everything like that, but you can't have. We stopped them on their first drive and on a 3rd down play, and there was a personal, I think it was a face mask penalty or something, and gave them 15 yards and moved them to the 50-yard line. And 2 plays later, they were kicking a field goal when we had them stopped. I mean, those kind of plays, you just can't do that against Clemson, as good as they are. They're going to capitalize, and we just can't have those big penalties. But overall, fantastic college football game, great atmosphere, just a lot of energy. And like I said, Clemson, I think, really just if DJ's playing well, they're a top 5 team.
Yeah, and he is playing a lot better. That you're right about that, and much better. Let's switch gears. There was a funeral, 2 funerals in Atlanta this past week at Georgia Tech. They fired the AD and the head football coach. They go on the road. That's what always happens, a team that looks like they're just, the living dead. You go on the road and you win 26-21 at Pitt. The Rambling Wreck with their interim coach, who's a Georgia Tech alumnus. Maybe that's the secret sauce. I don't know.
I mean, who knows? But, we talked about this the last couple of weeks on the show. I saw Georgia Tech play Clemson the first game of the year, and I was like, Georgia Tech in the first half looked like a pretty good team. I was like, okay, they're looking pretty good. They got some athletes. They're playing okay. And I was shocked to see what's happened to them the last 2 weeks, as far as they basically just, I don't want to say they gave up, but they just weren't mentally and physically in the games at all. And to see them, we were watching the scores during the day, and I saw that score pop up, and I was like, there you go, Georgia Tech. I mean, Pitt was, I think, 22 in the country, 24 in the country when they beat them. So that's a top 25 win on the road for Georgia Tech. That's a good win. And no matter how you look at it, you could say what you want to say about Pitt, but that's a good win to go on the road, especially after all the adversity they had this past week. And, Are they going to have a go to a bowl game kind of season? No, I don't think they will. But it's nice for them to see them get off and win a game on the road and kind of take it from there. And good for the interim coach to step up and fill some shoes and get it done. So.
Well, I think it's sometimes, when we were kids or in college, you don't like your teacher, your professor. And I think maybe that was just it. They just got a change of leadership. Sometimes that could be it. But whoever the new Georgia Tech coach is that comes in there, you're in a recruiting hotbed and you should be able to win. We know what Paul Johnson did. Georgia Tech has a tradition going back over 130 years. It's an incredible tradition, but recently, like we always talk about, the 17, 18-year-old recruits, they don't know about all that old stuff. Now, you teach them when you get them there. It's important that you teach the history, the traditions, and the heroes of your particular school and college football. But that was fun. All right, Florida State looking good. They're undefeated. They get beat by Wake Forest. What's your takeaway there?
Heck of a win for Wake Forest on the road, going down to Tallahassee. Both teams were, in the top 25. They're at 22 and 23. Wake Forest is legit. I mean, they're just a good football team. They can score on you in bunches. Hartman's a fantastic quarterback. He will most likely be playing on Sundays, whether he's actually on the field or not, but he will be on a roster on a Sunday. He's got he's got a great arm. He's got mentally he's got it. I mean, we talked about this last week. Wake Forest doesn't line up a bunch of 4-star and 5-star athletes on the defense and offensive side of the football. So hats off to Coach Clausen and what they're doing at Wake Forest. I mean, going down to Tallahassee, Florida State was on a roll. People are excited. Florida State football is coming back, and they went down there and took care of business. You got to give them credit for that. And then the Noles come to Raleigh this weekend to play NC State. So you got to hope NC State gets back on the horse and comes back and plays hard, because you look at the rest of the schedule. NC State's got Florida State, we got Wake, and we still got Syracuse. 3 teams right now that are good, and it's gonna be a tough road. But if you could get through that, the Wolfpack might have like that one loss season, and you never know what can happen and what shakes out. But Wake Forest is a good football team. They're never going to be an easy win because they can score in bunches.
No, not with Dave Clawson. And remember, Sam Hartman was going to be out for a while, and he came back quickly, and that's been reason. That's one of the stories of college football this season.
It is, and everybody kind of at first, it was interesting because they didn't announce what was wrong with them, and they just said for undisclosed reasons and whatnot. And of course, you wanted him hopefully that it was we've come to find out it was some of his health or whatever, but he's okay and he's able to play. And it's good for the league. It's good for college football. The kid's a special player, and they do a nice job. And then, they had one of the running backs go over 110 yards this weekend in Ellison. So, that's a nice combination. When you could get a running back to give you 100 yards and you got a quarterback like Hartman, where do you play defensively? Do you fill the box? Do you have to play back and whatever? So if they can keep their running game going and still throw the ball like they do, they're going to have a great season. They really are.
Syracuse, undefeated, ranked 22nd, I think, right now. After the bye week, they've got back-to-back games against NC State and Clemson. Back in 2017, I think that was the good year Dino Babers had. This team looks like they are a pretty solid football team. Don't know how good they are, but they're 5-0, and not everybody can see that.
Right. They've done everything they're supposed to have done to this point, right? 5-0 is 5-0. It doesn't make a difference. And, this past week, it was kind of a bye week. They played Wagner. I didn't even know, Wagner. I had to look them up to see what their football team was all about. But
I honestly did not know anything about Wagner. I mean, Jimmy's off today, but Jimmy may have known something about it. I don't. I'll plead the fifth.
I didn't either. I'm right there with you. I was like, let me see what they're all about. But, they haven't won a game all season. They're 0-4 and after losing to Syracuse. But, Syracuse has got a good team. They've got one of the best running backs, if you ask me, in the entire country in Tucker. I mean, the kid can just play. He can go. He'll be playing on Sundays. So, Syracuse has done what they're supposed to have done to this point. So we'll see. They'll be tested in the next couple of weeks for sure. Like you said, I mean, They beat Louisville pretty handily at the beginning of the season, and they played UConn, who's terrible. They beat Purdue, pretty good win there. They beat Virginia, who, at this point in time, at the beginning of the season, you would have said, oh, that's a good win, but Virginia's struggling. They just can't get it together. So then, like you said, they got NC State, and then they got Clemson, and then they got Notre Dame, Pitt, and Florida State. So their next coming up games here are going to be, you'll find out how good Syracuse is. Let's just put it that way. So
you look at a program like Virginia, there are a lot of people in that state. The Tidewater region historically has put out a lot of really good players. And
sure,
Virginia Tech under Frank Beamer rose to national prominence, just solid. Justin Fuente started off pretty good, but just tapered off, and now he's out. And I thought he was a heck of a coach at Memphis and initially at Virginia Tech. I look at Virginia. They don't lack for money. Will they spend that much money as a Clemson or NC State or these SEC schools on football? Probably not, but they've got it. They've got Paul Tudor Jones as an alumnus. They named the basketball arena there. He's a Memphian, went to MUS. They named the basketball arena, I think, after his father. But they got a lot of money, and you just wonder. I mean, you've been to games up in Charlottesville, Scott. That's one of the most beautiful settings I've ever watched a college football game at. And then you're
no
on
question.
And the thing about the ACC that always has got me, 7, maybe 8 of the top of the 14 schools are private universities. There's no other conference in America that has that statistic. Is there? I don't think it's even close.
I've never thought about that. I know they have a lot of private schools, but I don't know what the statistics are there. But I agree with you. I would imagine it's not even close. And then, then you just go right up the street, down the street to Durham, and look what Duke's doing this year. They're 4-1. Duke's playing good football too. So, yeah. There's all these little private schools in Wake Forest and Duke. When you look at the enrollments and the size of the schools and what they got to pull from, it speaks volumes for those coaches that can get those guys that are, again, not 4- and 5-star recruits. Probably most of them are 2-star. Their top recruits are maybe 3-star recruits coming out of high school, but they're playing at a high level and they're winning football games. And that's hats off to those coaching staff. Yeah.
Well, when you talk when you talk to coaches, it's about player development, because if you break it down, there are about 3,300 kids in a given year will sign Division I scholarships, and 1% of them, 33 typically, that's about how many 5-stars there are every year. Then there's 350 to 400 4-stars. So the other, let's say 2,850 kids that sign Division I scholarships with the 131 schools now that James Madison moved up to D1, about 2,800 of them, 2,850, are 3-stars, 2-stars, or they're not rated. So you better be doing a great job developing talent. And again, we know Appalachian State went on the road, the boys from Boone, to College Station. Again, I didn't buy into the preseason hype about A&M. That's why we shouldn't have rankings till about this time of the season, after week 5. They go on the road, App State, the Boone boys, with one kid rated a 4-star. Probably got him in the portal. Texas A&M had 56 kids rated 4 or 5. 7, and granted, I know you can't count on true freshmen to provide immediate help, but nothing's more disappointing to a parent, to a coach, or a teacher than to have people that are very smart, that are lazy, don't work together, and they just aren't motivated. So you get these kids motivated, you're capable of doing anything. And I look at these ACC schools, and I'm thinking, these kids, if anything, are smart. And I think about the most successful high school football program in Memphis in the last 20, 25 years that's won more state championships than any other school, public or private. And that's MUS. My biggest rival, I'm a CBHS alum. And CBHS is the largest all-boys school in the state of Tennessee. MUS has about 650 students, 7 through 12. Okay. Yet they've won 4 state championships, 4 runner-up, number 2, I guess, second place, first loser, whatever you want to call it. But they played in that game, I think, 8 times since 2001. You know what's interesting? they canceled spring practice back in 2001, and they told their football players during the spring either play lacrosse or participate in track and field or do both, because there's enough of these 7-on-7 camps and all that stuff you do during the summer. So we don't need spring practice. But they're smart kids academically, the honor code. It's amazing. That's the ACC. That's what that conference is. On a much
It is. I mean, there's definitely the institutes. Yeah, you're right. I mean, there's a lot of smart kids in there. And, to me too, Rob, one of the things I've always liked about sports in general is the underdog, and never to underestimate the underdog. And when you're talking about, Duke or Virginia or these schools at Wake Forest that don't have a lot of 4-star, 5-star kids, they got thought of 3 and 2, maybe even some 1s that they took a chance on. Those kids are hungry. They want to prove themselves. They have a chip on their shoulder, right? You got a lot of 4-star, 5-star guys that come in out of high school, all heralded and get national players of the year and all this and all that, whatever, ranked in the top 100 at ESPN. And they kind of maybe they don't have the same work ethic as those kids. I'm saying not all of them.
You're right.
But a lot of this generation comes in thinking, oh, I'm already good. I don't need to work hard or whatever. Give me a bunch of 2 and 3-star. Give me a bunch of 2 and 3-star athletes that got a chip on their shoulder and say, hey, how good do you want to be? Let's make you into a heck of a college football player. And maybe they're a little hungrier. Maybe they come in and work a little harder. Maybe that's how, I think that's a lot how you see the success of Duke and Wake Forest and those schools that really smaller schools that can get those guys to play at a very high level. They buy into the system. They buy into the belief that they can get better and compete with the big dog, so to speak. And they do. And it's wonderful to see. That's what I love about sports.
Oh, I do too. And I think it's a lot like you look at people that maybe, sometimes people will say, well, you're struggling with your schoolwork. Well, join the military, whatever. And that's a great option. Okay. You go there, you learn about hard work, discipline, the honor code. And then you graduate after 4 years in the Marine Corps, you go to college and all of a sudden you're making straight A's. It's all about the process of your experiences in life. I want to talk more about the ACC after this quick break with Tommy Kane over in Edisto after this.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Rob Browne talking with Tommy Kane, and shame on me. Pronounce the name of the beach where you are.
Edisto Beach, South Carolina.
Edisto Beach, South Carolina. How's it looking?
If you had told me this time last week we'd be here, it would had power and everything else. I told you were probably crazy because that looked like that storm was going to roll right through here, but it just kind of skirted up the coast and went a little northeast of us, and or where this beach is in Edisto at the time. So they got a couple of tree limbs down here and there, but never lost power or anything. So they're in good shape. So.
Well, hey, if you'd ever told me Auburn would be a 29.5-point underdog to somebody, someone just texted me and said, when was the last time Auburn was a 29.5-point underdog? And I just said, just by idiot savant memory that I have, I don't think ever. So you know what? a lot of funny things happen. And anyway, I look at the ACC schools, the SEC schools, and that's always been the rap, is that academically, look, all schools, you're going to get out of school what you put into it. Student athlete, Wimp Sanderson, great Alabama basketball coach, was asked one time after a game, I think they had lost in the NCAA tournament, Coach, how many of your players, of your basketball players, have graduated from Alabama? Wimp Sanderson looked at the guy and said, as many as wanted to. I mean, and you can't care more than they care. I mean, I believe me, I got 4 kids. I've told them that, school work and whatever. I can't get inside your body and be you. You got to learn to figure that stuff out. But if you go to a place like NC State, you major in mechanical engineering and you play football 4 or 5 years, even if you're on the scout team and you've got that letter, which you've got an NC State letter framed, and I bet you it's in your office, not that you're bragging, but when people walk in there and they go, Tommy, nice to meet you. Wow, you played basketball at NC State? And I mean, what were your stats? And you tell them I was a manager. And in 1993, the day before we played Duke, Coach Les Robinson, who had taken over for Jim Valvano, said, hey, Tommy, here's the jersey. We need you tomorrow. But you were prepared for the task, weren't you? And you never will forget that the rest of your life, because that you were ready, because that's your personality. But it defines people, and it says everything. You never quit. You hung in there and you fought. That's everything about sports, man.
It is. And, it's, I was very blessed. I was in the right place at the right time. And yes, I worked hard and kind of put myself in a position where I could succeed if I had a chance. And yeah, I did, but things just happened the right way. But, that's to me is a microcosm of life, right, Rob? I mean, you do things that you really know you want to try to accomplish in life, and you're not always going to get there. You're not always going to get to the finish line and maybe accomplish it, but you just know that you gave it your best shot. And you know that at the end of the day, you could say, look, I did everything I could to put myself in a position to win. I did everything I could to put myself together to get to this goal, whether it be business or sports or family or whatever. You got to just do what it takes to have a shot at succeeding. And I was lucky at the time. And that's what I love about sports. I love the underdog story in sports. I love when the small teams come in and like App State and whip up on Texas A&M to start the season. I mean, it's just glorious. Those kids' lives changed that very moment they walked that final second ticked off that clock. They will forever be known as the team that went into Texas A&M and won, just like the team that went into Michigan and won years ago. They'll be forever linked to that. That will change those kids' lives forever, and probably in a very most likely positive, influential way. Will they know that, hey, anything is possible in life? If I work hard, I work as a teammate, I put my nose to the grindstone, and I do everything my coaches say or my bosses say or whatever it might be in life, then you could put yourself in a position to have opportunities to win like that. And that to me is what is so glorious about sports when that stuff happens.
Well, I remember thinking about the underdog role. Shug Jordan, when asked in 1972, Auburn was 8-1 going up to play undefeated number 2 ranked Alabama, who was going to the Cotton Bowl. And Coach Bryant said, I'd rather beat that Cal College 10 times than Auburn, than Texas once. And Shug Jordan, when asked about the huge, heavy underdog role Auburn was going into that game, said, well, if I recollect, and I've been around a while, but not that long, I think David was a 40-point underdog to Goliath. And you remember what happened, because Auburn beat Alabama down 16-3 with 5 minutes and 43 seconds to go in the ball game. Bama punt 17-16. That's the most, it's a legendary story. But the point is, you can't, just because you're an underdog doesn't mean you can't win. And Tommy, you played against world-class athletes in practice every day. That's why you'd be a great coach, because you understand from the bottom up. You were a really good player. You got to NC State. You were a manager. Then you got to play with them in practice and all like that. But it's just unbelievable what it takes to get there. But that underdog role, a lot of schools embrace that. And
sure.
Like of the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. Now, my brother-in-law is a Marine, 26 years in the Corps. Don't tell him he was in the Navy. He'll tell you the Navy just gives us a ride to fight in their ships. But the point is, of the 4 branches, which one gets the least amount of funding? Army, Navy, Air Force, or Marines? It's the Marine Corps. Which branch of the four branches is the most prideful, feared in every corner of the world? They do more with less than anybody. That's the Marine Corps.
Right.
You can build a sports program that there's so many similarities. Now, to say you're going to war or battle to try to compare that to actual combat is silly. I mean, but we put it in a proper perspective, because my dad was in the Army. I've got a lot of family members are. I wasn't, but I love your analogy. And that's where the ACC, I would love to go to a game in Boone, North Carolina. Have you been to a game up there?
You know what? I have not. Of all the places in the Southeast, I've been able to watch a college football game. I know. I have not been to a game in Boone, North Carolina, and I would love to do it. I heard it. I mean, obviously, just a magical scenery all around the stadium with all the mountains everywhere and everything like that. And I love the town of Boone and that area, but I have not been to a game. I look forward to doing it someday.
Well, and I think someone sent me a picture of, and my friend Tim Horton was the running back coach at Auburn for a long time. He was with Jerry Moore up there for 9 years up in Boone. Pictures of Boone, North Carolina in the fall. It's just spectacular. And I've been to many winter formals when I was a student at Auburn up in Boone, North Carolina. That's a cool place to go to school. I mean, Western North Carolina is God's country.
It is. It's beautiful up there. And, it's just a good atmosphere. It's very laid back. It's a very, very liberal kind of atmosphere up there. And people are just easygoing and chilled out. And they don't have to deal with traffic, and they don't have to deal with all the stuff and it's just a good, easy lifestyle. And I look forward to going to a game there someday for sure. And speaking of Army and Navy, all those guys, that's who Wake Forest plays next week, as they entertain the Army, the guys from Army. So Army's not that good this year, but we'll see. It's again, chip on the shoulder, want to go and improve something. Going into Winston-Salem to play the number 15 ranked Wake Forest Demon Deacons. We'll see what happens. You never know, but again, I'll be pulling for a good game. Let's just put it that way. I want to see Army, stand up and put up a good fight.
Yeah. Hey, one other thing, we're about out of time, but have you noticed, is it just me? I'm watching a lot of football, and we were down at Lake Martin in Auburn for the game this past weekend. Knock on wood, but I'm not seeing that many targeting calls this year.
You know what? It's funny you say that, because there was 2 in the NC State Clemson game, and both. No. But both of the kids they said targeting, and they got tossed out. They got tossed out. I think I don't know. It's such a hard rule to. Okay, if a guy's running straight at you and you lower your helmet and put your helmet right into his chest or go right to his head, and it's a one-on-one situation, it's target. There is such thing as targeting. It does exist, but it's so hard to call those plays when it's a bang bang play and there's guys running and diving on the full ground, and the guy just the defensive back they got thrown out. He just put his head down in his helmet and he was just going over this leading with his shoulder, but the guy that was running the ball kept falling. So it was just a coincidence that they both hit at the same time. Yeah. But then when you watch it in super slow-mo on TV, you're like, oh yeah, that was helmet to helmet. And they toss him out. I think they need to somehow tweak that rule somehow, some way. So there's maybe different degrees, a whole lot of different degrees of what they see. But I don't know. It's a hard play. And I feel sorry for the kids. They're just playing hard football. I get it from a safety standpoint, but I think they got to do something to try to figure out a better way to call those different levels and degrees of it all. I don't know. So,
well, I think when an offensive player lowers his head, defensive player instinctively has been trained probably since he started playing football when he was 6 years old, lower your head. And I wonder if Marcus Dupree, Herschel Walker, Earl Campbell, Bo Jackson, Eric Dickerson, well, can you imagine they would lower their head, and that was commonplace back then. But we have Steve Shaw on the show a good bit. I know this time of year he's busier than I can imagine anybody, being the coordinator of NCAA officials nationwide. He operates out of Birmingham and is meeting after meeting after meeting with officials to try to get it right. But it seems to me that they've been working hard. There's 2 things I'm noticing this year, and we've asked Steve Shaw on this show a number of times about targeting, and obviously he said we've been working harder than you can imagine to try to get that across. Coaches are doing a great job of getting through to their players about targeting and how to tackle properly. Number two is, and this is interesting, last year, the Ole Miss players against Tennessee falling down in that game in Knoxville, just trying to slow down the other team's offense. I'm not seeing as much of that this year. And I know they've been trying to get the message across too. It hurts the integrity of the game. Am I off? But at least that's how I'm seeing it this year. Far fewer guys just falling down like a fainting goat.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I haven't seen that nearly as much either, and it's kind of obvious when they do it, so you kind of can pick up on it. But I haven't seen that much either this year. Hopefully, I agree. It ruins the integrity of the game. It's like watching a soccer match, right? The guys in soccer, they bang into each other, and the guy rolls around on the field like he broke his leg and he's done for his career. And then 2 minutes later, he's back up from the injury and he's running 100 miles an hour down the field trying to score a goal. I mean, that belittles the game of soccer to me when they do that, and they do all that big acting out there like their career's over, and then they're running down the field 2 minutes later. So I haven't seen it much in football this year. Hopefully, it won't rear its head as much when you get maybe into some big pressure games with the clocks. You got to work the clock and do whatever. Hopefully we won't see as much of that, but I agree with you. There's no place for that in college football. So.
Yeah, look, man, have a great time on your vacation down there at Edisto Beach. Is that north of Hilton Head or Pawleys Island or Kiowa?
It's south. It's south of Charleston. So it's south of Charleston, just by as a crow flies. Driving wise, it's about an hour, but you got to go inland to get back out to the beach. But as a crow flies, it's probably about 30-minute fly straight up the beach coast.
Well, I've been to Hilton Head a number of times, and you're sitting that Port Royal Sound, and you're sitting out on the beach, drinking cold beer, kicking back, and you can almost hear the guys over across on Paris Island like going, "God help me! How about a cold beer?" And at South Carolina is an incredible state. I mean, the beaches over there, if you could take the sand from the Gulf Coast down in the panhandle of Florida and put it on over there, you would have heaven on earth. But my favorite food to eat over there, do you like it? Low country stew?
Oh, man. Talking about anything. I grew up on the beach. I grew up in Wilmington, North Carolina.
That's right. That's
beach,
right.
Right to the beach. So anything seafood is my jam, man. And it's probably what I look forward to most when I get to come to the beach, is getting some good fresh, seafood and sitting on a dock somewhere in a restaurant with a dock and the boats around, eating some seafood or drinking a cold beer.
You can't beat
That's what it's all about, man. That's what it's all about. You give me a TV on a Saturday too, when I'm playing football, you put all that together.
Yeah.
And I'm a happy camper.
Hey, look, man, I agree with you. Look, go enjoy your time, fall break with your family. And we thank you so much for taking time out to share with us. Let people know how they can follow you, and also about your production company. If anybody needs you, I recommend Tommy Kane. He is damn good. He's elite talent.
I appreciate that, Rob. I do, man. So you can follow me on Instagram at TommyKane_talent. Just to kind of keep up with all that. And you can go to that website as well, TommyKane-talent, to see all my talent work and my hosting and MC work. And if anybody out there ever needs a motivational speaker or an MC or anything for an event or anything, I can do that for you. And my production company is pack30productions.com, PACK 30productions.com. And they, after my number, Wolfpack number 30. And I do all television production work, commercials, anything you need, and I can do it. So appreciate that.
Absolutely, man. We'll look forward to having you on next week. Again, have a great time, and thanks again.
Anyway, my pleasure, Rob. Y'all take care.
All right, you too. All right, we're going to switch gears, head down to Oxford, Mississippi. Yancy Porter, man from Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Hey, Rebels, man, we're down there watching on the color TV while we're running around. We're watching it at Doug Dean, AU Dose, and Frank Duffy were there with us down at Lake Martin at Doug's house, and watching the Ole Miss game before we took the back roads, a quick stop to Chuck's Marina at Lake Martin. Man, they got palm trees all over that lake. I mean, you might as well be at the beach, and people coming in all their Auburn gear on their boats and Sea-Doos and drinking road sodas and watching Ole Miss and Kentucky play. And hey, just another Saturday in the SEC, chicken on a stick. What else can I say? Rebels win, Rebels win, Rebels win. You excited?
Well, yeah. I mean, I thought Ole Miss really won the game on the line of scrimmage, offensive line and defensive line. Obviously, that's not stating much of the obvious there, but Ole Miss has got to figure a way to put these games away, right? They failed to do it against Tulsa. They kind of really a little bit failed to do it against Troy at the beginning of the year. I believe now they've scored 1 touchdown, 7 points total in the fourth quarter in 5 games. So they gotta shore that up. But they've got a good team. I mean, I've been saying for quite some time now, they're going to win with defense and running the ball.
Yeah. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We come back 7 points in the fourth quarter. Again, you say, well, heck, you're 5-0. Well, a guy like Lane Kiffin, who's an elite coach, that's probably something that keeps him up at night when he's not training his dog Juice. And as someone who's a training fanatic with Labrador Retrievers, probably takes a lot of his time. But I want to talk more about that. Rebels, again, 5-0. Yancy, you were way ahead of the curve talking about the line of scrimmage that Ole Miss has, especially on the defensive side. Quinshon Judkins, we're all watching him going, man, he sure would look good in orange and blue. But I digress. We're going to talk about that after the break. Stay with us.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right. All I can say is, how about a Fresca? You can't get these things everywhere, folks. My wife is a black cherry Fresca fan. You find those like at a Publix sometimes around Christmas, Thanksgiving. I hadn't been able to find any of them, but this is the old regular citrus Fresca. And tell you what, man, they got a kick to them. I don't know what it is, but let's get back to Ole Miss. And when you're a team that's 5-0, you look at elite coaches, and I put Lane Kiffin in that category. You're always looking for something to coach about. Talk about that trend. What do you think it is? Look, you're up 42-0 against Georgia Tech. What more do you need to do?
Well, back to what we just spoke about. You scored 1 touchdown, 7 points total in the fourth quarter in 5 games. Yeah. They've been up in every game, right? And some of the games they've been up healthy amounts. But, other games like Tulsa and like we saw here with Kentucky, they get down there inside what they had got first and goal on the 5-yard line. Don't get any points. Lane decides to go for it. A lot of people said, I don't know about that, but 6 points doesn't beat 7, right? If Kentucky comes back and score.
Sure.
But the bottom line with this team, Rob, is they're going to go as far as Dart's growth, right? We've seen him take baby steps week by week, and you see the potential in him. The big arm, the speed, he's got it in him. It's just they're going to go as far as Dart. And look, there's a lot of big games ahead, but everybody's kind of sneak peeking, right, to that 9th game of the season against Alabama. Can Dart, will his growth be enough to get over Alabama? Because we all know the Alabama game counts twice. And in order to get to Atlanta and make the playoffs, you're going to have to beat Alabama. So, there's still plenty of time. He's got 4 more games to get it right. But, you got to play out Vandy this weekend on the road. Let's be honest, they should take care of business there. Auburn at home. Look, we've said now for 2 years, Rob, with you on it, doesn't matter if Auburn is 0-28 and Ole Miss is 28-0. Auburn somehow wins that game every time. And then you got to go at LSU. So there's definitely some minds that could trip you up before you get to that Bama game. But that's where all eyes are pointed towards in the future, is that Alabama game.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun with Frank Duffy. Go Tigers, Mr. LSU Tiger from over in Atlanta was down there with Doug Dean and me at the Auburn LSU game, and in between stirring yet another cup of Irish coffee with Woodford Reserve in the morning. My wife actually called it Woodland Reserve. I'm like, that's Woodford Reserve, and that's what people bring to you as a house guest. That's when you get Woodford Reserve. But anyway, it was so funny. Frank is an LSU fanatic. I mean, historian, lives in Atlanta, but from New Orleans, talking about that Ole Miss LSU rivalry. And he goes, it's the way Frank described it, he goes, it's 1950s type hate, and it's just something special about that rivalry. The Magnolia Bowl, they call it, but it is a great rivalry. But again, you got to play at Vandy. You got Auburn at home, at LSU. So many good games, but I see this with this Ole Miss team. My floor, 8 wins. That's the minimum that I see them winning. But I thought, again, double digits are there on the table. Anything is on the table when you have the line of scrimmage that they have on defense. Again, let's go back, do a progress report across the line of scrimmage, tackle to tackle, and everything in between on the offensive line.
Yeah, I've kind of harped on Ole Miss's pass pro set blocking this year. The offensive line, that's been kind of a thorn in their back, all the way back from spring training. But we really saw them take the next step, right, this past Saturday. They did a fantastic job. They started 2 true freshmen. They made some personnel changes. Obviously, their center was out for the game, so everybody kind of slid around in different positions. But whatever they did in last week's practice really worked in that game. As simply they kind of dominated Kentucky's defensive line, kind of like Ole Miss's defensive line dominated Kentucky's offensive line with 9 tackles for loss, 3 quarterback sacks, and 7 quarterback pressures. So, honestly, Ole Miss should have won that game a little bit more handily. They did. They kept Kentucky in the game. And it became a 50-50 game there in the end, but the defense that took it over there with those 3 forced turnovers on the last 3 possessions.
Yeah. I got a text from Jeff Lynn in Deerfield Beach, Florida. Did Yancy Porter go to the White Animals concert Friday night? And how was it?
No, all my buddies did.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute now. You were supposed to. Jeff Lynn. Jeff Lynn's pretty famous. You know who he is, don't you?
I do. But no, I didn't. I've got kids, and my wife was out of town, and I had some responsibilities at home. So
you're a great dad.
I was here at my house.
How old are they? Aren't they in middle and high school now?
16 and 12.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, look. Yeah, you can't take not at that age. Although my kids grew up watching Kingpin, Tommy Boy, Raising Arizona, Fletch Lives, Full Metal Jacket. Maybe that's why they're the way they are. But I will say though, the White Animals, man, when they come up,
they were fantastic. I've got videos of it. All my buddies were there. It was a good time I hear.
Well, we'll have to play when the podcast issue. It's kind of tough on how you can use bump music because of copyright laws. And but if we got to get this worked out, we'll be using a lot of White Animals as bump music. But that from Jeff Lynn in Deerfield Beach, Florida. All right, want to talk about Zach Evans, Quinshon Judkins. Again, last year you had some studs: Snoop Connor, Jerrion Ely, Henry Parrish. Really solid running backs. By the way, give me a progress update on the 3 that left. One's in the NFL, but let's talk about them real quick and then go back to the current 2.
Yeah, I mean, Snoop Connor, he's getting carries for Jacksonville Jaguars. They've got pretty loaded backfield there. So he's kind of like third string a little bit. And then Jaron Ely's on the practice squad with Kansas City, and Henry Parrish is doing his thing for the Hurricanes.
Okay. All right. Now, Zach Evans, Quinshon Judkins. These two.
And Bentley. Bentley's the third wheel. Now, remember, he broke his hand in the second game of the year, and he's been out the last 3 games. I think he'll be back. Everybody's hoping he'll be back by that Alabama game, right?
Yeah. Well, and I made the comment to someone the other day, and I drew a blank there. It was about Beer 30 Friday. Thunder and Lightning, 1988. Ole Miss goes on the road, I think wins 24-10 in Tuscaloosa, year 2 of the Bill Curry era. Give me the names of Thunder and Lightning. Wasn't it Robert Smith and who are they?
No, Thunder was from West Point, Mississippi, and I can't. You can't put me on the spot like that. I'm drawing a blank. But yeah, I was there at that Alabama game in 1988. They threw a burning brick through the Alabama's head coach's window, Bill Curry's window. After that, it was their homecoming. I believe it was Ole Miss's first win ever at Alabama.
I think that was the Homeowners Association and Welcoming Committee. Oh, think about B. Arthur coming knocking on your door. Welcome to the neighborhood. B. Arthur. I mean, seriously, send me to Siberia, to a gulag before I'd have to spend any time. And I think she's dead now, but I think she was about 6'5", scary woman. I mean, really. And then there's Maud. Ooh, and that husband of hers was about half her size. But Howard or whatever. Oh, and let's go back. This Ole Miss, one thing I noticed with Ole Miss, God, they are having a lot of fun. And the issue about the crowd, about the students and the fans leaving early, how satisfied were you with that crowd participation Saturday? Because, man, what an environment they have created at the Vault. After Johnny Vault, 6 SEC championships, 3 national championships, and 196 wins. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't mean to be stepping on anybody's toes. Before there was Bill Walsh in that offense, the West Coast offense with the 49ers, Johnny Vault brought that kind of offense from his coaching days as a player at TCU to Ole Miss. So it's named for a coaching legend, a true BA, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think all of the fan hoopla was about nothing. I mean, look, when you're playing, nothing against Troy and nothing against Tulsa or Central Arkansas, but come on, you're not gonna get fans to come to the stadium and stay through 4 quarters when you're playing teams like that in the 95 to 105 degree weather. It was extremely hot. Month of September here in Oxford as it was everywhere else. And maybe that's just an excuse, but when you got a very good team playing teams that, you're favored by 20 plus points every game, you're not going to keep them there the whole game. That's not realistic. Not in 2022. This is not 1982 anymore.
Yeah. Well, what I'd heard, the scuttlebutt was among my friends, my sons, my kids who were all in their 20s, the scuttlebutt was the reason the students and the fans were leaving early from Oxford was, and I have this on good accord, they ran out of frescoes.
The students left because they didn't want to pay $12 beers anymore. They've got a college budget, and you got their ice chest 100 yards away. I don't blame them. I would have done the same thing. I'm not going to lie.
Well, and again, you go back to the days of wood panel station wagons when you pulled your station wagon out into the Grove and Winnebagos and RVs out into the Grove. But I tell you what, Ole Miss fans are having a lot of fun. We were down at the Auburn LSU game. Auburn fans are having a lot of fun. Not so much fun when you're losing, but you know what? You're just 1 or 2 plays away, or some impact player coming in that changes everything. And what do college football fans just live on? Hope. One player gives you hope. A coach gives you hope. I'm telling you, you were right in the preseason. Jackson Dart is more of that gunslinger mentality. Mike Matheny, Rebel for Life, listens to the show every day. Mike lived out in Colorado in Basalt for about 20 years on the Frying Pan River in his backyard. Life is good when you're beef. But, I think about Jackson Dart, and he made a point. You nailed it in the preseason. That would be the guy. And, man, he's got a cannon for an arm. What's his upside? Compare him to Matt Corral and some other recent studs that Ole Miss has had at quarterback.
Hey, he's got a lot of corral in him. He's fearless. He likes to run people over. He's got a big arm. Is he quite as quick as Corral? I don't think so. Does he quite have as quick release as Corral? I don't think so. Now, did Corral have that when he was 19 years old? No. As you get older and stronger and faster and bigger, that can improve just like it did with Corral. But they've got a lot of the same mental characteristics where they just play fearless. Now, what we did see from Jackson in that Kentucky game is that he was not playing as reckless as he was the last few. He wasn't trying to run people over. He was getting out of bounds. I think that the coaching staff really drove that home to him. We want you on the field. We don't want you on the DL on the sidelines with us hurt, right? So I think that that he was being very conscious about stepping out of bounds, not trying to run over Kentucky defenders like he's come to accustomed to these first few games where he likes to run over people and not around people. So, they got to hone him down on that. But I thought that was a good step he took there against Kentucky. And I thought he looked a little bit more comfortable just in the passing game in general. And again, he's taking baby steps each week.
All right, got a text here. Says, from the ghost of Hiram Hank Williams in Kalijah, Alabama on the shores of Lake Martin. Listening to Sidelines, I got one for Yancy Porter, and I'm reading it. He says, is this Ole Miss team potentially better than last year's 10-win regular season team that went to the Sugar Bowl? The ghost of Hiram Hank Williams. I love that name. That's beautiful.
They're not as good as last year's team right now, but is their ceiling a little bit higher at the end of the year? I do think so, because they simply have more players, right? And they don't have a Judkins. As good as Snoop was, Judkins is, like I said, I think he'll be a Heisman candidate before he leaves Ole Miss. I'll be barring injury. I'll be very surprised if he's not there in New York as a finalist. So they've got more depth on the defensive line. They're going to be a little bit more equipped to sustain some injuries down the road that last year they were not able to do.
Yeah. And it was funny. We had Damian Mitchell from Jocks 94.5 FM in Birmingham. He's on 6 to 7 in the morning, and he's on with Cole Kubelik and Greg McElroy a lot of times from 7 to 10. Knows his football and talked about him from Park Crossing down there, the new little town high school they created by the overpass to Shorter, outside Montgomery. There's just so much talent in the state of Alabama. Give us a little peek into the recruiting right now, some of the top targets that Ole Miss is still in on.
Well, there's a lot. Marvin Burks, a 4-star safety, was in town this past weekend. Jaden Rashada, the 5-star quarterback from California that's committed to Miami, was in this past weekend. Dante Dowell, a top 100 recruit. So running back, another 6'2", 220-pound thumping back from Picayune, Mississippi, that's committed to Oregon, out of all places, was in this weekend. There's a lot of players that they're on right now. Ole Miss is creeping up the recruiting rankings, not surprisingly, right, as you are creeping up the regular rankings in top 10 now. I believe they sit at number 21 with only 12 commits. So they've got, fewer commits than everyone else, but their average star ranking, I believe, out of the 12, 10 or 4 or 5 stars. So the quality's there. Lane's got it rolling. The Lane train's rolling, and there's no question about it.
Well, and again, you look at, you may only have 10 commitments or 12, like you said. It's that average ranking per player.
Yeah.
That's the one I look at.
Yeah, I believe they sit at 8 in the country on that one.
Okay. Well, bottom line is they're having a lot of fun at Ole Miss, and I think the fans are going to be at those games regardless. They love doing it. What are you talking about tonight on the Rebel Yell hotline at 6 p.m. Central?
Well, we're going to have Tom Stevenson from SB Nation, from Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
We'll have Harry Harrison, the Ole Miss sideline reporter from the Ole Miss Football Network. And we'll go over this Vanderbilt game, and we're going to dig in a little bit deeper on what's going wrong offensively there in the second half for Ole Miss.
That'll be good stuff. That is on Sports 56 WHBQ Memphis, Super Talk Mississippi. Hey, I want to thank all of our listeners. We'll go to 680thefan.com, Podcast Park, Atlanta, Kicks 96.3, Alex City, Lake Martin, Alabama, and always www.sidelines.live, Twitter, Spotify, Apple. Hey, man, go out and help somebody with the expectation of getting nothing in return. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. And as Yancy always says, have a blessed day. We're blessed to have you, our sponsors, and our listeners. See you tomorrow, everybody. We're out of here.
Thank you.